All right, so today I'm going to be talking with Mariano, um, who's been in the chat many a time, and he's a Godot developer, and I thought it would be a good idea to talk to him because he's basically a professional in the space of Godot's GUI and UI. And so I'm gonna get him on a call here, and I guess we'll start talking to him. Let me send him a message here really quick, actually. Let's see. And I guess I need to make sure that my audio is set up properly.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good, good.
Awesome. It's great to actually be able to. We've both talked to each other and heard each other's voice, but we haven't
Right?
been on the like receiving end of being able to actually talk in real time. One of us has always been in chat, you know. So
Yeah, chat is annoying, especially because of the delay in the video. Like, sometimes I make some suggestion, but by the time you read it, it is too late already. You have figured it out
right,
yourself.
yeah. Um, all right, so let me. I've got some notes here, and then but yeah, it's really good to actually hear your voice and talk to you for real. I guess you could say. But yeah, I feel the same way, and I never know. You know, I'll send a message, and what happened to my? Sorry, give me a second here. There we go. I'll send a message and wonder because sometimes even I will miss the chat. I actually have to have like audio notifications just because I'm so bad about noticing, uh, a message or
Yes, I did the same on my streams. I added audio notifications because of that.
yeah.
But,
Yeah. So I guess I can just
uh,
hop
right,
it hop.
like 20 minutes ago, I was looking at your last stream, and it seems the audio notifications was not working, or
Okay.
at least was not playing
Okay.
on the stream.
Oh well, actually, they
Maybe you
don't.
forgot to open chat it.
Those don't show up in the VOD. Um,
Oh,
yeah, there's a way
does
you
not play the sound.
right. There's a way you can set your audio so that some of the audio won't end up in the VOD when it goes to that. So I set up my notifications not to do that in the once the video's up. So I should be able to hear them. Let's see. I'm gonna get my notes out here. And I'm sorry for the amount of it took me a while to is it
It's okay. You was doing important stuff,
yeah so that
and we
kind of
can do this any other day if we don't have enough time today.
yeah should be okay. I don't know how long this is gonna go.
Mm-hmm.
I just need my notes to sync really quick.
Yeah, I have about 1 hour at most
At
today
most. Okay.
because I will have dinner later.
Okay. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna grab
And
my
my wife is not very flexible with that.
oh yeah, I understand. Let me grab my laptop because my notes are on there and it's not syncing onto my computer right now for some reason. So I'm gonna go grab that real quick. That'll take. Well, maybe it did sync. Let's see. Well, I can get started. I remember the initial stuff. So, I guess the first thing I was wanting to know is what's your history with Godot? How did you get started in it? Well,
What?
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
So everything started when I first started making game development. So I joined a local community in my city, and then eventually uh, I started with Unity, like most of the people, but I did not quite like it. I found out Godot because um, Juan Linietsky lived close to my city, like 3 hours drive or something like that, and the community in my city target of him and target of Godot and things like that. So I could introduce it in the post project, like trying to do little stuff. First, I made uh, we had checkboxes, but we did not have radio boxes. So I did the only change I did was if you use a checkbox like a radio box, it drawn a radio icon instead of the box, and then keep doing little stuff like that. I started making streams on YouTube first, making a clone of Pokemon. Uh, with that project, I got to meet one of my closest friends, Bruno, and um, we formed some kind of uh, fantasy studio because we never made a game, but we published a couple of Chang games on each year. I think you play it, Maisaba. Um, and continue making some development on tools for Godot itself. So the first and most proud thing I have made was the texture rec picker. Before I made that picker, you had to put the position and size of the rectangle using integers in the inspector, so
Mm.
you could not just select a rectangle and have that working in your sprite. And after that, I improved the color picker. So before you had only three sliders for RGB and no wheel, no uh, uh,
Oh, really?
visual feedback of what was the color that you was picking.
Oh,
Yes, I
wow.
am talking of Godot 1.0 times. Um,
So that's how far back you go, is way back at one?
yeah, I have been following Godot since the first release. Like since like Godot 1 was just brand new, right? So they open sourced it and it was Godot 1. Um, from there on, it was the way to Godot 1.1. And I remember in the time where I was making the Pokemon development videos, I was using Godot, I think it was 1.2 alpha or something like that.
Wow. Yeah.
So, and my audio was terrible. I had a lot of noise. The microphone did not have grounding. So anyway, so I did a couple more things in Godot itself. Like I made the first implementation of auto tiling and the editor of the tile set. Right now we have a much better one that this has been worked on by some other people, but the first one it was made by me.
Yeah.
Uh, all of this because I live close to Juan Linietsky. I got to meet him in a couple of events and stuff like that. And eventually Juan introduced me to who is my boss currently. So I work using Godot thanks for these connections that I have made working in this first project.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Um and so you work mainly, as I understand it from when we've talked, you work mainly within doing GUI stuff in Godot.
Well, that is my my area of expertise. I do some a little gameplay stuff, but not much. I know how to do it, but I I I would not be the best person to do it.
Right.
Uh, but I got very well used to working with every kind of object and properties. And controls has a lot of properties, unlike no 2D or no 3D or mesh instance. So there is a lot to find different ways to do the same or to do what you intend.
Yeah.
Um,
So is are do you find? I mean, does the work that you're doing is this primarily in for games, or are you finding that you're also doing things for folks that need something in terms of, say, they're actually building an application in Godot, and they're
yeah, so I cannot talk much about my
okay,
shop or what are the current clients
okay,
of my boss, but I can tell you that in the previous client I was doing GUI stuff for a mobile game,
okay,
but that had I don't know 3D world and movement and cameras, etc.
right,
And I worked with making the GUI, making services integration, like making HTTP request calls and giving responses and keeping the data up to date and that kind of stuff. And right now I am working in a desktop application that is using mainly GUI stuff.
okay. Um, so as far as I guess we can. I'll start diving into questions about the GUI specifically. I'm familiar with it, but I wouldn't say I'm any way 100% knowledgeable with it. I keep finding things out as I move along in it. But I guess if it's not too much to break down like a kind of an overview of how Godot's GUI system works. Is that something that you can kind of compress into a short description, or is that asking a lot?
Uh, it's probably quite straightforward. So the the GUIs in Godot, the controls in Godot, uh, has two or three main setups, which is the layout of the GUI. So every control is a rectangle, and it has two ways to set it up. One of them is using margins, and the other way is using size and position. And there are a lot of presets when you select a control and it is a child of another control. You can open the menu in top of the canvas viewport, and you can select to the preset, I don't know, top white or bottom white or center white or full rect or stay relative to one of the four corners or relative to the center of one of the four sides or the center of the window. So that is like the most simple way to set it up. But then you can get a little more uh, specific if you tweak those properties yourself because you have those presets. But if you go to full rec, but then you change the type. There is a preset called custom if you go to the inspector. And if you change it to custom, you can set margins yourself. You can set other kind of uh, specific, like you can use the anchors to have a percent like offsets to the parent instead of pixels offset. So that escalates sometimes better to different aspect ratios of the application when you resize the window.
Yeah.
Um,
So
So depending on what is the situation, sometimes um, I create a node and I most of the time full rect is the way to go. Uh, but sometimes you need stuff to be centered or keeping the aspect or stuff like that. And the other half of the work is knowing what the containers. So there are two ways to lay out the controls. One is using the size presets that I just mentioned that are always relative to the parent. And the other way is using a container parent. So each container will lay out its children, and each children has some settings, a little hidden, that are the horizontal and vertical flags for filling, expanding, or center on the beginning, on the center, or the end of the direction. And also there is a grow direction when the parent allows to feel more. Like um,
right,
there are a lot of those properties that you get to know. Once you get to know what they are for, and it is much easier to understand. So the grow direction is an example, and I helped you, I think, is some time ago to make that when you made a multi-line label, it grows in the up direction instead of the down direction, and that is useful when you have a bubble speech, which was your use case.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so once you get to know how those properties works, it is just a summatory of properties for your use case, right?
right.
So
So actually, one of
um,
my questions, one of the things that I struggled with it, and I haven't revisited this too much, but I guess this ties into a question I was going to ask later on, but I guess I'll bring it up now. But uh, with regards to animating, first thing I'll ask you with that is, are there some like best practices you would recommend when it comes to animating controls, or is it as simple as setting the position? Um, like how would you? These are things I've never attempted to do, so I don't even know where you would begin with something like this. But let's say, could you say apply a shader to a control when you hit a button? It like you have the some sort of shader effect happen, like a warping bubble effect if it's like a game that's in the ocean or something. Uh, like is the animation system pretty much the same thing that you experience when you're working with Node 2Ds and the like, or does something about the way that it's structured, is it a little different, the approach that you have to take when it comes to animating controls?
okay, so if you take a look to the class inheritance, you will see that control and node 2D both inherits from canvas item,
Yeah.
which is a virtual class, and all the drawing stuff comes from canvas item. So you can make a canvas item shader into a control the same way you do to the node to the to the to a sprite. The only difference you will find in some cases, not all, is that sprite are mainly, unless you are using a um, 2D mesh, they are always rectangles, two triangles, and that's all. They are always rectangles with four vertices. And controls sometimes are more than just a couple of triangles because you have like nine patch, and sometimes the center of that nine patch is tiled, sometimes it's stretched, sometimes it's just centered, sometimes you don't draw it at all, and stuff like that. So it is like any other shader. You have to remember that when you make a shader, you make a vertex shader and a fragment shader. That is like quite common, uh, you may find out that your expectations are not
Right, because like like
in
you're
line
saying
with
the
reality.
some of them.
In example, sometimes you mentioned it making a wave effect. The thing with making a wave effect is that you're drawing in a triangle or a rectangle, and if you want to make a displacement of your texture,
Beyond that
that
size.
you will find out that if you try to draw outside of your rectangle, you will have some missing pixels because you 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 are just drawing inside your rectangle. You cannot draw outside of it.
Right.
Uh,
Okay.
this is basic rendering this stuff.
So when
Um,
like let's say you're animating, um, yeah, I mean, so it's probably a good idea for instance, to maybe limit how often your containers would resize. Does that sound like a good practice in terms of like if you're wanting to dynamically animate, maybe in the game, the someone like you've got a leaderboard, right? And somebody scores higher than somebody else, and so you want to animate their position changing, uh, up that leaderboard, and you've got all of those elements um, inside of a control, and maybe you're using a container. Maybe it's like a VBox or something like that. Uh, is there an approach that you can take to animate that kind of action in the controls?
no, with a VBox directly.
Okay.
So the thing is, the VBox, every container has a virtual function that is called sort children. So it's not yes, you can do it from connecting to a signal, or you can do it with a notification what virtual override. And what you do when that function is called is you iterate the children's and say, okay, this is the new rectangle for the children,
Mm-hmm.
and you manually change the position and size of the children based on the flags and etc. etc. So the thing with Bbox and Hbox is that Godot has already an implementation for them, and they will fit the controls in their position, and you cannot get them out of there. In fact, you cannot even scale the children because uh, most or many containers resets the scale and position if you try to change it. Like you can change it after they have been sorted, but if for some reason Godot tries to resort the children's, you will lose that change. So the thing is, if you want to make a container like that, then it would be better for you to have your custom container class that internally has a pbox, like a fake pbox container, just to find out what would be the position of the controls, and then use some magic, some extra magic to make your own animation or whatever. But I have never tried to do that myself.
Okay.
Um,
Um, do you? So the thing I was wondering though is there like sort of uh, a best practice? I mean, most of the animations that I think you can get away with that you're not going to run into too many problems is if you're adjusting the positions, I guess you could say. Um, the things that I were struggling with, and maybe you have some thoughts on it, is I would basically do what you're describing. I would sort of pseudo, like I would have like another copy of a container someplace else, make the change in there, figure out the new positions and everything, and sort of animate those.
yes, and then using a twin node to
Yeah,
change the position smoothly.
yeah,
You
okay,
can send transitions. You can use some tricks to add some offsets and stuff like that. like when you made the bump of the ball for the bump set spike game.
Yeah.
Like you had like basically two twin functions, one for the linear movement and another one for the height movement. They was mixed in the same function, but it was basically the summatory of two movement functions. Um,
Right. Right.
uh,
Um. So. Uh, so there's something else that I think that some people miss with doing GUI and Godot, and that's using canvas layers. Um, if I want to make sure that my understanding of this is correct, it's a good idea in general. If you're going to say you're going to have, let's say you're making an MMO or something like that, where you're going to have a hot bar on the bottom and HP and some stats up on the top left or whatever, and it's all going to basically stay where it is on the screen. As I understand it, it's generally a good idea to put to child controls in a canvas layer. Is that right?
and yes, eh, and actually, you was showing today your Paper Mario characters in your tactical RPG scene.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking the way I would have done that would be using Node 2D and put Node 2D inside a canvas layer, and then each Node 2D has a some reference to a node 3D that is in space, and I would project the position of that node 3D in the camera and put my node 2D into that position for every frame.
Oh, I
So you
see.
would have 2D over 3D overlay, and it would match the exact position. And then you can make a dot product multiplication between the forward direction of your character and the forward direction of the camera, so you can pick what direction your node 2D should be looking to. So you can pick the sprite that shows your character looking up or your character looking down, and that is more or less the same as having your sprite into 3D, except it will not cool inside the wall if because if you use billboard, there is this usual case where it is close to a wall and then the sprite ends up inside the wall
Right.
because of the inclination.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So you can.
so there are a lot of issues with it. Like what I mentioned, it sounds great, but then it comes the case where you need your character to be drawn behind some 3D object that is
Right.
obscuring it. So then it doesn't work anymore.
Right. Right. Okay. That actually ties into another question that I was going to have, which is, is there is there a time when it actually makes sense not to do something that you would call UI, but not implement it with Godot's control system? Are there instances where maybe you don't want to be doing that?
Basically, if it takes input from the mouse, it should be a control. If it takes input from the joystick or something else, I would only make it a control if it takes focus or something like that. Um, if it is something very very simple, like I don't know the Pokemon menus,
Mm-hmm.
where there is only one focused object and you can move it with the arrow keys, then I would not use controls. I would still use controls because I can use position with rectangles, but I would not use the um, any input control. I choose text to rect and color rect, not more than that,
Okay.
and label text and stuff like that. And you asked about animating positions and other stuff. So before I forget, I wanted to mention, I mentioned it that Godot layouts works in two modes. One of them is position and size, and the other is the margins.
Right.
If you are using the margins, you want to animate the offset margins, because if you try to animate the position, the control will override your position with whatever is set on the margins. And
Oh.
the opposite also happens if your object is set, if your control is set to control using position and size, and you try to animate the margin, the position and size will override your animation. So you have to be consistent with that. Uh,
So what is that? What is that?
um,
What does that look like in implementation? So you're not moving. You're not using like set position or dot position equals to move something. Are you having to do some math to include the margins, or how are you moving that thing around so that you're not dragging it by the wrong thing essentially? Um,
well, the the margins are properties like any other. You can see them on the inspector if you are clever enough to find them. You have to change the preset the preset type to custom, and then you have to set some other properties and expand some categories, and then you finally find the anchors, and you finally find the the margins. Um, Once you find them, you can choose put a keyframe, and the margins are always relative to the rectangle of the parent control. So if the parent control moves or changes size, the child control will keep relative to it. And if if you animate your margin, you can make it positive to be to the left or to down, like the x and y axis, or negative for sorry, I said left, it was right, to right and down. And if you make it negative, it goes left or up for the y-axis. The same as if you was using position, that it is just uh, a different value that has a different meaning
mm,
that resolves in a similar situation. So what you would animate is you would make the margin from 0 on the four sides to, and in your end keyframe, you would have for top and let's say first for right and down, you will put a 20, and for top and left, you will put minus 20, and that would make an animation of making your control grow, because you will have more space. It will become bigger than its parent by 20 pixels on each side, and then you can make another keyframe later where you put it in reverse. So you put uh, minus 20 where it was 20, and 20 where it was minus 20, and then it will shrink and be smaller than the parent rectangle of that than the rectangle of the parent control, uh, making the assumption that this is set to full rect, right? Because if you are using top wide, then left is anchored to left, right is anchored to right, but both top and bottom are anchored to top when you are using top wide.
okay. Um,
So it's just a matter of how many pixels is your child rectangle apart from the line of the parent rectangle.
what do
It is
you?
not that complex.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is I think people stay away from. There's a little bit of a hurdle when you're first getting into GUI and Godot, and I think it's a mix of understanding what containers are actually doing, and how to use those to shape what you want on the screen. And so I think what a lot of people end up doing, and I guess this kind of leads into it, but I think a lot of people end up kind of mixing control elements in scenes with node 2D elements and all this other stuff, and they sometimes maybe are there's some behaviors that end up happening there that they're not necessarily expecting. What would you say people, from what you've seen, what do you think people get wrong the most when they're doing GUI work in Godot? Like, what do you see as the common pitfalls that people are falling into?
Well, something I see a lot is that people just get the controls in the relative positions to the parent without any kind of layout or without any kind uh, of anchoring or
R-
setting rectangle. It is very common that they make a control parent and then make label and texture children inside of it, and they are just working as Node 2D. So
right.
they are choosing position and size inside the parent control, and um, that is quote fine when you are doing simple stuff like making a life bar and then showing the name of a character. But then you end up in situations where, in example, you put the name of the player, but then if you allow the player to change its name, then you will have the name will not be aligned with the player properly or stuff like that. Um, and that is where the growing directions and that kind of properties comes handy when you know how to use them. Um, Putting controls as child of Node 2D is not wrong. You can do it. You If you do it, uh, controls children of Node 2D works as in position system. You cannot use the offset or margins laying out. If you put Node 2D as child of a control, it will work as in position. It is relative to the top right, top left position. Sorry, I miss the directions a lot because I don't speak English natively. So
No, you're doing fine though. So.
uh, yes, thanks. So I am I am not. I don't judge people, but I have my own way of doing the right layout, and I pay a lot of attention to that because I always think into making the things a way that if it changes size, it keeps consistent, right?
Right.
So if it grows because the texture size has grown or the name or the text that is written grows, it should fit in the way you want. If you put a text that is too long, you will want it to wrap and add more lines, or you will want your control to be wider, and you will want it to be centered to whatever is the parent or the interested object, or etc. etc. Like it is, I see commonly that some people should makes the math manually. They should get the size of the control and then calculate some offset and put the control in the player position plus offset or minus offset, whatever. Um, and that is something else that I don't find very appealing. I prefer to do the stuff in a way that Godot does the job, and I don't need any code. Like yeah, that. that is mostly I try to find a way that Godot does the laying out for me without me having to do any position or laying out
Yeah,
with the code.
right.
And
Yeah, I mean, to me, I would want to do the same approach where the only time that I want to be doing anything like that, programmatically, is when I'm animating something. Like I want to, but even then, you can actually, using the animation player and stuff like that, it's possible not to have to.
mhm.
It's not, you don't have to do that, and I think that that's really critical when you're working in a team is to allow the graphic designers and the people doing the design work to be able to not have to step into code in order to do what they need to do. And the more that you throw something in behind the curtain, so to speak, in code, the more that you're asking people who would be better suited to dedicate their time working inside of the Godot editor and building out their scenes that way and working with the tools in there so that they can work without having to touch the code, right? And so it's probably a better. And I'm wondering too. That's what you're experiencing just in the work that you do is that's just naturally makes the most sense to do it that way, just to keep those things sort of, I guess you could say, sort of separate, but. The question was not necessarily like what, not like a pet peeve or something like that, or that that somebody's doing something wrong, but more of like cautionary, like if you follow this general rule, you're not going to run into being nearly as confused or not understanding, what exactly is going on with the control element. One of the things that I started doing with controls that I really appreciated was that you can accept the input events inside the control. And so when you're doing, when you're collecting inputs for somebody's in a menu and they're pressing up and down and all that stuff, and you don't want that to go to the character controller, you can, if you're collecting those inputs in the control, you can accept them, or I forget the exact terminology, but you can say, I got it, and it
I
won't
think it was
handle, right?
mark as handle or something like that.
Yeah, and I found that really, really nice. And it changed the way that I collect inputs, anyways, because in order for that sort of that to work, I needed to put my player controller inputs on unhandled instead of directly on input. And so long as I would do that, and then I would collect them on control and say, I'm handling this, then it wouldn't, you get your pause menu up, you get, or something like that, or you have a tactical menu up, and now, the other guys are sort of brain dead and not hearing what inputs you're giving, to it. So, I really like that, and I feel like I haven't really seen. I don't know if I'm doing that right, but that's how I end up implementing that, and I really think that's really a clean way to do stuff like that.
Yes, working with inputs is always a mess, and the GUI or the yes, it's a GUI. Sorry, I pronunciate it as I write it. So it's queue something, right? The queue of inputs
Mm-hmm.
is kind of it has an special ordering. So it first goes to controls. It goes if you have canvas layers, it will use the seed order of the canvas layers first, and it
Oh.
will go from the bottom to the top, executing the GUI input virtual function. And once that is done, it will start to, if it was not handled by any of those controls, it will start from top to bottom in the scene tree using the input event. If nothing handled it, it will start using unhandled input event. Um, that is the order. And there are some other more um, conditions to it. It's not like every single control will handle every single input. Like controls has a property for uh, I think it was focus or something like that. Like you can make controls be focusable
Yeah.
with the mouse click or with the keyboard, or also not take focus at all. If it
Yeah.
does not take focus at all, it will only capture mouse input events and touch input events on mobile. Uh, so you cannot really stop um, keyboard events unless you are using a shortcut. I think there is also a shortcut, a shortcut input virtual function that I never use it personally, so I don't quite get how to use it yet.
Yeah.
Um, so yes,
Well, I think
controls now, or some controls now has a shortcut property that you can use to set uh, like control J or P for pause or stuff like that.
I get
So
it.
if you
Yeah.
have a button that pauses the game and you put a shortcut that pressing the P is the same as pressing the button, then you can use the keyboard to press the button. And you can even set properties to animate the button like if it was clicked.
Right.
So it shows highlighted and everything when you press the keyboard button, which is nice. Um,
Yeah. Well, I think for me, for now, I don't want to keep you much too much longer. And unfortunately, my day was jam packed, and I wasn't able to. I wanted to get back here sooner, and so I'm gonna have to go here in a little bit. But I wanted to say thanks for talking to me and everything, and I'll probably, if you want, I'll probably find other reasons that I'm gonna need to question you about certain things. So I'll get you on here, and that'll probably be more related to like actual work that I'm doing, and not such a broad topic.
yeah, it ended up like a podcast. I thought
Yeah.
it was going to be pair programming.
Yeah, no, I do want to do that with you at some point, but I'm not in a position right now with the work that I'm doing to
Yeah,
even
it's okay.
to even go over anything like that. So, but I did want to talk to you and like get some questions and sort of double check my thinking on things and stuff like that. So I do have much better understanding of it all. So yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. And yeah, is there? I mean, do you have like any? I guess since it is a bit like a podcast, do you have any? Is there like? Well, actually, hey, let me. Why don't you mention what you're working on Twitch? Because that's like a really cool
Uh,
project.
yes, I am working on an NES emulator, and up until now, it has been pure low-level coding. Like I specialize in GUI, but I do a kind of programming, and most of this project up until now has been abstract classes representing hardware uh, and making low-level operations like simulating the CPU operations. Um, uh, right now, I am like 25% ahead of the entire project. Um, and I have a working CPU and a working bus and memory chips that are dynamically added to my bus because it started with a unique array of memory that I could change at will, but now it is being transformed into some kind of Frankenstein for the sake um, of accuracy, right? So that I want to emulate a right hardware. So I found interesting that uh, the actual hardware, there are 8 pins for the 8 bits of the memory address that are connected from the CPU to the memory bank. So it is a parallel bus where the address of the memory is passed. And some of those bytes are not physically soldered. So you can put many addresses that ends up in the same memory address on the memory. And that causes the the famous shadow memory. It is not because the memory is duplicated, it is because the same memory address points points to another address where some of the ones into your binary address are zeros in reality because they are not physically soldered.
I still can't.
And
I can't believe what you're doing though. It's crazy. So it's the
uh,
6502, right? Is this specifically the NES?
for now, yes. Eventually, if I get hooked into this project, I want to also make a Game Boy Color and Super Game Boy emulators,
Yeah,
and starting from the bottom, from the most simple ones,
right.
like the 8 bits uh, consoles, and maybe eventually the 16 bits consoles. I don't know. Um, because it's a fun project to make, but I also find too much of is a niche a word in English?
Um, I don't. Yeah, niche. It depends on who you
Niche.
ask. Yeah, yeah. But most people say
Yes.
niche. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so it is like there is not much people that programs in Twitch or likes to see programmers on Twitch. From that people, not many people use likes Godot. From all those people,
Right.
not much people likes Assembler. From all those people, not much people likes NES. So I am putting down my possible viewers,
Yeah. Yeah. No. That.
essentially.
Yeah. I think any.
But it is a project that I wanted to make, like, for fun, and I am fine with having one or two people around to chat while I do that. I am not thinking into building a community or anything like that.
Yeah. I find when I'm doing real work that that's when I'm. If people are watching me, they probably just have me on for sound, and generally it's when I'm not focused that suddenly, if I glance at my viewer count, it's larger. Um, there is now a frustrating uh, influx of viewers whenever I'm playing the Pac-Man cabinet for the high score redeem, where suddenly there's it's like 2x viewership just out of that, and it's like this sucks. Like, should I just be sitting here? But that's not why I'm streaming in the first place. I kind of use it as like a clocking into work thing for me, where it just
I did not understand. You get twice as viewers when playing, or half of the viewers when
twice.
playing.
It like my viewer count usually doubles when I'm sitting there playing Miss
But
Pac-Man.
it's what I was saying. More people like retro games than they like
Well,
programming with Godot.
yeah. Well, I think it's kind of a catch-22. As Godot gets bigger, they get their own category in Twitch, and then people start putting themselves, or I should say, a tag, and that's good. But
Uh,
then it also means
I don't believe that will happen anytime soon,
right,
because there is only software and game development. There is not even game development
right.
alone or software development alone.
Yeah, and I
So
mean you'll
there will be a long way before that.
right, and you'll be on Twitch and you'll look and you can see how many people are in that category alone, and sometimes it's only like 1,000 people, So it's definitely, you're not doing, like, if I wanted that, viewers or whatever, I wouldn't be streaming in that category and doing stuff in that category.
If I wanted to get viewers, I would be playing some game or doing speed running.
Yeah.
Not
I've considered if I was going back to doing the tactical game, it's a little. It might be against the terms of service actually with Twitch, but if I put Final Fantasy Tactics as what I'm streaming, even though that's obviously not, I think I'd pull in more people, and I might actually do that if I ever got close to like getting a game ready to sell. I might piggyback on
but
it.
I don't know how Twitch measures this stuff, but in YouTube, for example, you could get negative uh, results from that because people would come see you are not doing what you say you're doing
Yeah,
and disconnecting right after uh, because of that, and that could give you negative score or something like that.
yeah,
And like YouTube cares what they measure is if people who enters stays more than 10 seconds or something like that. Um,
right.
uh, and that is what it uses to suggest the people what to see next. But the first Twitch does not make a lot of suggestions other than the 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 home, the dashboard, and there is always Free Fire in there. There is nothing else.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and YouTube algorithm is totally broken. I always get the same videos that I have already seen, so
Mm-hmm.
they are useless to me because I cannot
Yeah.
discover new stuff that
Yeah,
way.
no, it's especially
Like,
bad if you don't allow it to, if you don't have it keeping your watch history. It's especially bad. It's like it has amnesia, and
like
and then it,
if I want to see the same over and over, I will make a playlist and
yeah.
play it.
I'm constantly having to like clear my watch history and do all this crazy stuff to trick it back into being a decent recommendation system. But yeah, I find that too. I find it gets like, it's I think it's broken. It just gets clunked up, and then I experience the same thing where it just constantly recommends the same videos again and again and again, and I end up having to just say never recommend this channel to me. Just stop, and that
Mm,
it sucks that.
I don't remember if there is some settings in the account settings to add as the the search date or something like that. Don't remember.
Yeah.
Um, if
Um
it doesn't exist, it should exist.
yeah, if it doesn't, it just feels like at this point, if it doesn't make them money, they just get rid of it. um
Yeah, it happens to me sometimes. I want to search for 8-bit music to put on the stream, and it always gives me
mm-hmm.
the same songs
Yep.
uh,
Yeah.
or
No,
stuff like that.
it feels like a lot of that stuff is getting worse and not better. It's really strange. I mean, even uh, doing when I would do Netflix back when they would do the DVD mailers and stuff, it was amazing. But then as soon as you go to streaming video and all that, the amount of things that you can select from decreases. And as these companies have moved out into their own offerings, their algorithms, can only be tuned for what they have available. And if YouTube is going to focus on, we need to increase ad runs, and we're going to prioritize things based off of that. Well, then maybe what they're finding is, unfortunately, the thing is training itself that if we just keep recommending these videos, we tend to get more ad revenue, even if they're the same video. And that's where it's like,
Yeah,
it's broken.
it's ridiculous. I use a 20 minutes video in the mornings to do some workout, and I get like five
Mm-hmm.
ads,
Yeah, no,
like
it's bad.
five pauses with 3 ads each.
Yeah.
But like every 5 minutes,
And
you
it's
get an ad. It's horrible.
right. And most of the ads, it's like, why are they this? I don't fit the category of person that this should be shown to. Like, all this information about me in theory. Why is this the ad you're showing me? It's so strange sometimes.
Yeah.
But Well, I appreciate you talking to me, and like I said, yeah, I know we were talking about doing like a pair programming thing, and I definitely want to do that, but I need to be in a position where I feel like I'm not going to be wasting your time, and that I'm like I'm actively learning C# right now, so it's not the best time to jump into that, but I'm having fun with it. A lot of things are starting to finally click for me. It's anytime you're learning a new language, it takes a little bit of going, and this is really only the second time I've ever worked with a compiled language before. So, so it's a bit of a curve. But I'm having fun with it, and I'm already seeing the benefits of using it. I just finally figured out the structure for doing. I don't know. I'm having a lot of fun with it, but like, the equivalent of I want an array of dictionaries. In Godot, I know the shape of that, what it looks like in code, and I finally figured it out. Like it finally clicked for me. Oh, this is how I would do this in C#. And it's beautiful because you can set, you can say the type of everything in that like structure, in that data structure, and it's great. So there's a lot about it that I like.
Yeah, I agree on that. When I program in GD script, I always use strong type hinting. Like I put types to every single variable, even if it is used only once. Sometimes I create variables just to give names to magic numbers, and I use my own set of best practices to make the code readable in the future, like the way I name the
Yeah.
signals, the way I name the functions that I connect, and when I call down, when I signal up, the way I name my classes, and when I subclass a node, when I subclass ref counted, when I subclass resource, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's the stuff that when I tap you in to help me with something, that's the kind of stuff that I'll definitely want to probe you about. So, but I always appreciate you seeing you in the chat, and you're a really nice guy. Really appreciate talking to you, and yeah, I just want to wish you a good night, and I guess I'll see you soon.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna go ahead. Yeah. What's that?
Let's write.
What was that? Sorry, I missed that.
Let's write. Sorry that I have my throat sore.
Oh yeah. All right. Okay. Well, I'll see you soon, hopefully.
Yeah. Sure.
All right. Okay. All right. Bye.
Talk to you soon.
Okay. See ya. Bye. Okay, so AI Maker saying time for Miss Pac-Man. I guess I'll do one Miss Pac-Man, and then I'm gonna go ahead and raid Els. That's my Thursday raid. That's the tradition in this house. So we'll do a Miss Pac-Man run. Maybe we'll get lucky. I don't know. Let me get the sound up for that, and we'll roll over there and do a round. How are we doing on sound? Everything okay? Yep. All right. Good. Might help if I zoom in. Oh God, this is bad. We can still do it. It feels like a curse when I get an initial. All right, not a bad run. Almost perfect. Oh, shoot. That was embarrassing. For me, the meta has changed a little bit, so my eyes are training to look in positions they wouldn't normally. I'm totally making excuses for myself. Oh my God, this is bad. What a bad start, guys. I'm so sorry. Still can do it, though. I'm getting coward. I'm getting very cowardly right now. Sounds still good. Sounds still good. Oh, I screwed that up. I'm a goner. All right, that was a bad run. I kind of want to do one more. I'm going to do one more. You guys are going to be hooked on Pac-Man again. It's my fault. Woo! They got me. Well, that was good. Woo-hoo-hoo, that was close. Good gravy. This could be it. This could be it. Dang it. We're very close here. All right. Oh boy. I did it! Yes! 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 Oh, I could have kept it going. We gotta keep it going. Yes! We're gonna get to 5. 50, 50. Let's do it. Woo! Come on, 50. Come on, 50. Yes. Woo. Boo, 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 boo. Finally. Busted that high score. No! And then I do something stupid like that. All right. Thank you, AI. That was you. That was your redeem. All right, and on that note, we're gonna go ahead and rate L's. I appreciate it. What score did we end up with? 49740. So I don't know. I'm sure how much we broke it by. I got a little too excited there, but now I know I can get there again. I can get there again. So let me zoom out. I'm very happy about that. What a day, what a day. And it was really just, it's just like 2 people watching. I don't care though, it's a really special moment. I'm glad I could share it with you guys. And I'll definitely clip this, so I should throw a marker in here as well. I'm all shaky. It just sort of happened too. That's what I get for shutting up. If I just shut up and play, I'll do way better. But like I said, I used to be around 6s. I used to get in the 600s.
600,000. So I know I can do it again. Let me get my mic back onto this.
All right. So much love, everybody out there. Thank you so much for hanging out. Sorry the last 2 days the streams have been broken up and so strange. It won't be that way tomorrow. We'll be back on a full-time stream again tomorrow. So, anyways, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. So, bye. See the raid. Yeah, peace, AI. Thanks for the redeem.